congratulations on your election. Elected unopposed. This is something that we are all collectively envious of. To my parliamentary colleagues, particularly the leader of the opposition and Robert, as leader of the Greens, the three candidates for the by-election in Cedar Black, wish you all well. I wish Alex well the most, but I do wish you all well. Look, I'm very conscious of the fact that we're here at a forum arranged by the Holfast Bay Residents Association for a by-election. And I don't think there's any denying the fact that in these type of circumstances, in this particular forum, the old adage is true that all politics is local. That is a saying that is familiar with any political pundit. But I'd invite you just to lift your eyes for a moment and think about the bigger picture, because the three local candidates, I think will address local issues, and I will at the end. But I just want to focus on the bigger picture for a moment, because that's my responsibility as Premier. When you elect a government, or when an election takes place, ultimately someone has to have the responsibility of thinking about the wider remit of government and the power it has to be able to influence the future in a way that is positive for people. And I guess that's principally my responsibility as far as the state government is concerned. If you look around the world at the moment and ask yourself what are the biggest challenges that we have in terms of humanity and humankind, I would say there are two. The first big challenge we've got is a geopolitical strategic shift. The unipolar world of American dominance of foreign policy is changing before our eyes, and it just so happens that our island continent, our precious home in this country, happens to reside right in the area where we are seeing the fastest pace of change in human history. To our north, we see the biggest military build-up that has ever happened since World War II, and we see geopolitics at play in our region, and all of that creates a degree of insecurity. And what that insecurity necessarily means is we are seeing Western economies, for better or worse, dramatically investing and escalating their investment in industries such as defence, space and cyber. Now I simply ask you, which state in our federation is best placed to capitalise on the opportunities of that advancement in industry? What is the home of those industries in our country? Well, it's South Australia. The second big global challenge of our time, without doubt, is the need to decarbonise industry. But do it in such a way that doesn't just acknowledge that climate change is real, but do it in such a way that brings the people on a journey with them economically, so that we don't cut a whole generation of people loose in terms of their living standards in the pursuit of decarbonisation. And again, what I would ask you is, which jurisdiction in the country, which state in our nation is best capitalised or best positioned to capitalise on that opportunity? Well, of course, it's got to be the jurisdiction that is already home to an abundant amount of renewables, but also a whole range of rare earths and critical minerals that are key to decarbonising the global economy. Think copper, think magnetite iron ore, and think our renewables. Well, of course, the answer to that question is South Australia. So the world's two biggest challenges at the moment happen to be South Australia's two biggest opportunities. And the task before the government is to calibrate our policy settings to make sure that we grab that moment, that we don't lose that opportunity. And that is why we have been so aggressive, so determined to make sure that we use policies such as education, training and skills to invest in young people having the skills so they can build the world's most complex machines down at Osborne in the form of nuclear submarines, or work on projects like getting the copper out of the ground that we know that we have, that the Western world so desperately wants and needs. And then at the same time, making sure that we're starting to think about how our state is going to grow, which it already is. And the policy there that worries me the most is housing. We have a major housing shortage, and it is impacting everybody. Both Vincent and Robert referred to the cost of living challenge that we've got. Well, the number one cause of the cost of living challenge that we've got in this country is a huge shortage in housing. And what worries me most, and everyone thinks about their children, regardless of they're young or old, what worries me most is, are we building enough homes so that our kids have got half a chance of living in a community where they want to live, desirably close to family and friends, without it costing them more than they can afford. And the only way we address that challenge is dramatically and rapidly escalating housing supply, but doing it in a way that is thought through. Doing it in a way where we're actually putting in place the infrastructure around communities to accommodate that growth. And we've got a range of policy that we've rolled out in that regard, but it's all about the long term. Because you can't click your fingers and fix those problems. Now, of course, what you want to see is state government working in concert with local government, and we are seeking to do that. And of course, we as a government aim to be very responsive to councils that get onto us and ask for some money. And most of them do. I can think of one project though, where the council has not written to the state government formally asking for any funding, and that's the Jetty Road project. Now, we've heard plenty in the media about state politicians viciously opposing the Jetty Road project, and I do want to acknowledge Stephen Patterson, who was out on the TV saying that the Jetty Road project's not funded, it shouldn't go ahead, it's going to put 7% rate rises on everyone in Holdfast Bay, and he's right. And then he went and supported Amanda's candidacy for the Liberal Party, so I'm not too sure how those two things are particularly consistent. But we haven't received any formal funding request. We've been trawling through our records to see if the Mayor wrote to the Labor government asking for us to support a funding request of Jetty Road, and we have not been able to find evidence of that. But what we would say is when you think about making local commitments, you've got to make sure that you fund them. Now the Greens tend not to worry about that so much. It's a virtue of not being a party of government, or not yet, but we do. So when we made a commitment to Darren that we're going to do something about the train station, and we've already done a bit about the train station, that's 200. That's not 200 million. 2 million. That's 2 million we have to actually put in the budget, because when we make a commitment, we've got to deliver it because we're the government today. And this bloke here made a number of commitments to the people of this community at the last state election. It fell short because David Spears won fair and square, and I credit David for that. But despite us not winning the seat at Black at the last election, this fella here has been on the phone to me making sure that we honour the commitments to this electorate that we made in the last election. And that's in a relationship that we would very much love to extend in the future, should this community choose to do so. Final thing I'd say is this. Robert touched on the other election that's happening that's going to be in the news cycle a lot over the next few days. And he is right. We do politics differently in South Australia, and that's a good thing. And I acknowledge the Libs for the civil discourse they've had. My worry about politics and democracy is apathy. Apathy, I think, is the Achilles heel of politics. The system works when people care. The system breaks down when people stop caring about it. The fact that as many of you have turned up tonight, I think says something about democracy being a good state in this part of the world, which is to your credit. Thanks.